Coach, obviously the big news last week was, we were able to hit the play button again and get off the pause. So just kind of an opening statement on, how good it felt to kind of get back on the practice court and, start to get back in the swing of normalcy again.
Well, like every coach or player across the country, we'd rather be on the floor than not. So it was nice to try to get back into a routine with some full practices and trying to get back in shape. That's the biggest thing, I think, when you go on that sort of pause in the middle of the season. Christmas break is one thing where you have 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe days, and it takes a day or two to knock the rust off. But 12 days is a much longer time frame. So that was probably the biggest issue to overcome, was just trying to get back into some sort of rhythm.
Okay. And then any questions for Coach? We'll go ahead and open it up here.
Coach, I guess to start, can we get an update on Jason King and Kalen Williams? I know they've been dealing with their own injuries, but how are they doing now that they've had that time to rest up?
They're still progressing back. Neither one of them is doing any sort of physical contact in practice. So, hopefully in a few days they'll be back to being able cleared to have contact in practice.
Coach, now that you guys are back to playing here, obviously, looking forward to the next time that you guys are going to get a game together. Any update on the scheduling front?
Unfortunately, nothing concrete. With the holidays approaching, some teams are sticking around, some are taking the traditional break. So I think there is a waiver allowing you to play the 24th, 25th, 26th, where in years past there were days that had to be mandatory off days. And don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty darn sure that there either is a blanket waiver or you can apply for a waiver to play on those particular days if you choose to do so. So we're in talks hourly with different folks across the nation trying to pair up with someone and play, but we don't have anything concrete to release at this point.
In those talks, I guess, do teams seem, I guess, open and willing to go to Phoenix to play you guys, or would it mostly be a road scenario?
Some are, some aren't. Just depends on the situation, the location, where that particular program is at in their season. So I don't think it's out of the question. I mean, every year most teams would rather play at home than leave the friendly confines. But some people have expressed a willingness to come here and play. But, again, most teams are starting league play. Some have already started. Others are starting, tonight. And we're one of the last teams, conferences to open league play as late as January 8th. So, we almost have to rely on teams going on pause to open up potential games for us with their respective opponents if that happens. But, if history continues to repeat itself, that will be the case, and hopefully we'll jump on some opportunities.
Have you found it increasingly difficult as far as some of those Power 5 leagues, as far as just a reluctance to schedule non-conference games with conference play opening up, or is it just kind of depend on each individual league?
Yeah, I think it's more in each individual program, where they're at, if they lose a league game or two, how big a gap it is, till they play next, and who do they play next, and where do they feel they're at. So there's so many, factors. And again, it's uncharted territory if scheduling games, on the fly and, thinking about scheduling games in your conference play because of other teams going on pause. So, it's just something that none of us have ever experienced before.
Some of us have had the opportunity to talk to Coach Terry at UTEP, and he kind of pretty much dispelled that. Doesn't seem like you guys are going to be able to work something out to play for the first time, I guess, since 1943 or something like that. I guess just how disappointing is that?
Yeah, it's very disappointing. once in a lifetime pandemic has disrupted all of our lives. It's unfortunately disrupting other things as well. The traditions that we're used to, not just in basketball, but in life in general. And, from when they released their final non-conference slate, I guess is how they put it. I think that was probably the nail in the coffin, but it's definitely disappointing.
How about any contact with? Would you like to probably obviously get a game with UNM though too, because they're obviously in a limbo situation with their playing status?
I think. Excuse me.
I said sorry. Where they're not their playing status, but where they're able to play.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part of it all. Is we're not 3 hours from each other anymore. They're for the most part in Lubbock, Texas, or Levelland, Texas, and we're down here in Phoenix. So that makes it a little more difficult, and they're starting league play. So it's hard, and I don't think either one of us are opposed to making it happen. But at the same time, I know how I would be if we were about to start league play. That would be of utmost importance to me in our program. But we'll see. We'll see if the stars align and it can happen. I don't think either one of us want it not to happen. It's just, will the timing work for both parties?
Chris, with WAC play coming up, talk to us a little bit about maybe needing to get one game in before you start that WAC play, especially when you started on the road at Dixie State. I mean, how important is to get at least one more game in for your guys to be ready for WAC play to start?
We need more than one. We need multiple games before WAC play starts. I think the worst part about what we're going through, and until you are in the midst of it, you can't understand it. Like a lot of things in life, until you experience it, you really don't know how it affects you and your kids and your program and your team. But going on pause in the middle of a season now, and watching all these other teams be exposed, that's what early games do, is you get exposed, and it gives you things to work on. It gives you an opportunity to see what you're good at, what you're not good at when you stack up against another competitive program. So that's the biggest issue I think we have right now is, we have an idea of our strengths and weaknesses, but I think other teams really expose you to some holes in your program and what you don't do well, et cetera. And so that's my biggest concern and worry is we just don't have game experience. Guys aren't used to playing with one another when the lights are on, and guys aren't used to that type of pressure. And that's a problem. And then when we start WAC play, we have a bye after the first weekend. So that's not ideal for us either, but that's not something we can change. It's out of our control. And the old cliche is, control what you can control. And so we've got to figure out a way to get multiple games between now and January 8th because of the experience that's required and just to see where we're at. And so we have necessary time to, adjust and try to fix those problems that will definitely arise.
Coach, is it safe to say with this waiver that's in place that you're okay with having the team travel on Christmas Day if it needs to go play somewhere for a game the next day or even on Christmas Day?
Yeah, we're open to whatever we have to do to make a game happen. I don't think there's a lot of talk playing on actual Christmas Day, but that don't mean you wouldn't play on the 26th and, some team would have to travel on that particular day. It's certainly not ideal. I mean, we're going to spend Christmas as a basketball family this year here, and we're going to try to make it as nice as we can and certainly celebrate the holiday. But at the same time, a lot of firsts this year, a lot of new experiences this year. It wouldn't be out of the question to do something like that.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, if you guys are spending Christmas together as a basketball fan with Dota, anything interesting or special you guys have planned, I guess?
Well, if I did, I couldn't share it with you when it become public and my players would hear about it. So, again, we got a lot of smart individuals on our staff, and We're getting a lot of help from folks back home to just, make it as homey as we can and make it as Christmassy, if you will, as we can. And, again, it's a priority. I mean, it's not what I'm thinking about 24/7, but it's definitely in the back of my mind. And we've had conversations about it and trying to set it up to enjoy the day and celebrate the holiday as best we can.
Last week,
Chris, has there been? Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, last week you kind of had told us that obviously this time last week you guys were still shut down, but the morale was kind of what we expected it to be. There wasn't, not everyone's smiling around. I guess, how is it now that you're able to get back on the court? But also the fact of the matter is there's no end game except January 8th against Dixie State. Are guys kind of clamoring a little bit to just try and get some game action, or what exactly is the morale now that you guys are practicing again?
The morale is good. The attitude is good. Definitely they're in better spirits being on the floor than not being on the floor. As much as kids might complain about, a coach getting on them or a coach asking for more or pushing and prodding them to be their best, when they don't have that type of backing or coaching, teaching, they miss it. And I think, this has probably brought that to the surface as well as, they can work on their game and have a trainer and do individuals and all that. But there's nothing like, competing against other competitive guys and being a part of a team and trying to reach, for new heights. And I think that they feel that now, in terms of, clamoring for games. Unfortunately for them, they don't have any control over it. I think we got a very trusting relationship, and they know that, we're doing our due diligence and our jobs behind the scene to try to get some games together for them to compete in. But, like I said, from day one, they've handled this whole deal really well. And they've had great attitudes and approaches, and our mindset, I think, is pretty good considering the circumstances, and I expect them to continue. But sure. As a coach, you're dying to compete as well, but I think as a player, it's even more so. Players get tired of practice, more than coaches do. And it'd be nice to, like I said last week, to see the land, to be able to know there's somewhat of a destination, and we haven't been able to give them yet. We've talked about it, behind the scenes with our team, and hopefully sooner than later, we'll be able to give them some destinations, some games that they can look forward to.
Chris, I know that you're focused right now, on the here now. What are the plans possibly in place for when you guys have a home WAC game, with the potential of not being able to get back to Las Cruces? What's the discussion there with that?
I'm not at liberty to unveil anything, but I'm hopeful that in the next few days, there will be some sort of release, if we can work out the details of having an actual home court where we will play all of our home games at this particular season. But I know there's been tons of discussion. We're exploring different venues in order to do that. And people have been great down here. People have been very helpful and very understanding of our situation, the way they've treated us, the way they've been trying to be accommodating to what we need to function. But definitely that's been in the back of our mind since we've been here is, hey, is this going to be long-term? And if so, we've got to have some plans in place to be able to host games, either non-league and definitely in WAC play. So, the powers to be have been working diligently to make that happen. And hopefully real soon, we'll be able to make some sort of statement about that.
I wanted to ask you too, are you open to, when conference play starts, to maybe having a midweek game, like a Monday or Tuesday game against some other non-conference opponent?
Absolutely. We're already thinking, and, it's a way, that's the funny thing is, but like prior to this year, I mean, if I'd have said, hey, we're looking at trying to schedule some games, in mid-January already, be like, that would be, no one would ever say that in the history of college basketball. And now I'm like saying, hey, we're already looking mid-January of trying to schedule non-league games, and it's just really weird if you think about that. But yeah, we got that bye week. And so we're going to try to play games during that week at the minimum. And then, like you said, I just think you're going to have to react to the situation. Some teams, I think, will play non-league games in February. I mean, if let's say we have an opponent that gets knocked out because of COVID and we have an open weekend, I just can't imagine that we won't try to play someone else. It's just going to be the wild, wild west. It's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting to follow for sure. But I just think people are going to have to make quick decisions and be nimble and agile and adjust, and just having a willingness to be open-minded and to do what's best for the kids in the program, and we'll be like every other program, trying to make that happen.
Anything else for Coach this morning, guys?
Yeah, one last question, Chris. Sorry.
No worries.
Did you see what Kansas City did with the doubleheader this past weekend? And was that something that you might explore as an option to at least get a couple in?
I don't think we will, more than likely. You should never say never, but that was very interesting. I was surprised when I saw it, and I didn't realize it until after the game. I'm sure I saw it on social media, but apparently right now the Summit League has some sort of guideline or rule or bylaw where they can't play non-league games either after their league starts or after January 1st or something like that. So I'm assuming that has something to do with why they played back to back, to be able to get some games in before their league play, planning on being able not to play after that. So that made more sense once I heard that was the situation. But, I'm sure if you go through something like that, the first thing that comes to mind is, hey, when these kids are playing AAU, they're playing 3, 4, 5 games a day, but just unheard of, I guess, in Division I. But sounded like it worked out okay.
Coach, you said in the last press conference that once you guys do return, you're going to get a better sense of, which players were trying to stay in game shape, I guess, as best as they can during the quarantine. Did you see that out of any guys once you guys got back on the court?
I thought for the most part, it wasn't as bad as I anticipated. And I was probably anticipating really, really bad. I got to, these kids are young, got fresh legs, guys like us tried to come back from doing absolutely nothing for 12 days and went out there, ran around. We'd be laying all over the floor, begging for oxygen and stretchers and all that stuff. But, I don't remember any particular player sticking out. But I guess my first initial thought was it was better than I anticipated.
All right. Anything else for Coach this morning, guys?
Coach, you got any good television shows in Netflix? Anything? I know you were mentioning you were interested in watching some stuff. Did you find anything to pass the time?
I'm watching. You guys will get a kick out of this. I'm watching Breaking Bad for the second time, and the reason I decided to do it is because now that I'm a New Mexican, I may have a different perspective watching the show and having a better feel for the setting and surrounding and the whole deal of it, filmed in the state for the most part. And so I'm enjoying that journey again. I'm just in the initial season, but that's where we're at right now.
Coach, with the COVID-19 situation and obviously this 12-day part, are any of the players feeling homesick around Christmas time? Are they wanting to get a hold of family members, or has any of them, have you noticed one player or the other misses home a little bit more?
No, I haven't. But again, probably better served to ask them. I don't like to speak for the guys, but I don't think, they're going to express that to me. My staff would maybe give me a heads up if one or two guys in particular were having some issues that way. But, they're used to being away from home at this point in their lives. And I haven't heard or seen any issues with that topic.
Coach, one thing I was going to ask you about is Trevorling.
Anything else, guys?
Trevorling got through nearly the final cuts for the Rockets, and now
Okay.
there's talk.
Thanks for.
Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Talk that Trevorling could be signed to the G League and have an opportunity to continue to develop himself there and try to get back to the NBA. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what Trevorling's journey has been like, and ultimately, a chance to see him play in the NBA down the road?
I said this prior to the draft. I said it post-draft that this is just the beginning of his basketball journey, or, it's just another step, I should say. His journey's been since he started and got serious about the game as a young person, and where it's taken him so far. And people get so caught up in the NBA if they're drafted or not, even though, in my opinion, it has very little to do with if they actually make it in the NBA, if they, get to be on a roster, if they get to play full seasons. And again, he wasn't drafted, but he was been in a camp, obviously. And I just think he's going to have to roll with the punches, and he's going to have to always be ready. And any opportunity that he gets, he's got to take and make the most of it. But one thing about Trev is he loves basketball. I mean, he literally eats, breathes, and sleeps ball. I don't think he has a ton of distractions that way and outside interest. And, he really, really wants to be a professional basketball player for as long as he can. And so when you're like that and you're a fringe player, if that's the right word, in that particular league, which is the best in the world, the globe. It's a pretty select company to be in that league. But you have to be that way, because you never know when, opportunity is going to present itself. So I think because of his mindset, because of his approach, that he'll have other opportunities. And again, he's just scratching the surface. He's just starting his professional basketball journey. And like everybody, I'm rooting for him. I'm in his corner. I'm going to do everything I can to help him. And, be curious to see, how it unfolds.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Okay, man. Text going off. Lunchtime, baby.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
See y'all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Coach.